know this better. Let me get rid of this floaty panel. Right. Okay. Can you see the screen okay?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So yeah, I can't see anyone on this one. Sorry, I'm on one screen because yeah. So if you do let me know if you can't see anything. Yeah, so my name is Richard. I'm a postdoc in bioinformatics education at the University of Edinburgh and also a curriculum developer. And so part of that job is actually going to schools and doing bioinformatics workshops around schools. But this is my kind of side hobby, I suppose. So I've always loved video games and playing games. And I've always kind of wanted, since my PhD, to pursue trying to use this more in engagement and now trying to use this more in terms of community-based work. But I want to talk a bit about today about something which is quite relevant, which is about translating research and researchers' work into video games like this. So some of the things on here are some of the stuff I've done in the past, just on the sides here. That map of Scotland, by the way, is in Minecraft, just in case anyone is interested. So just let me get to this next slide. So these are some of the collaborations that I've been doing lately about translating research, and it's kind of actually across, it's now gone international, which is quite nice. Wasn't intentional, but so I mainly work in biology because that's my background and that's the kind of people I know, but this kind of approach can work in all sorts of other disciplines in STEM. I think every STEM subject could do something like this. So Maria mentioned about doing work with data, biological research, so we're doing that in infectious disease modeling. I've got a thing with Anthony, which I'm going to talk about today briefly. With Dorothy, I'm doing things on learning and memory. So actually doing memory experiments with young children at Edge Hill University. Quite excited about that because it's an experiment I used to do when I was a neuroscientist. So it's quite cool to be able to do that now in humans. It's going to be amazing. And then the one in pink at the bottom actually is a proper real video game with a proper game developer that we're making, which is looking at compassion and empathy towards lab animals. If anyone is interested in any of that, wants to find out more, do just get in touch with me. More than happy to talk about these things. But yeah, I want to kind of talk about how I've been doing translation with video games into video games right now, but then also how I'd like to see things work perhaps in the future. And I think this kind of group is kind of well placed to do that. So right now, how it works is, so I have a researcher like Antonis, and he finds out about what I do, and he's really interested in taking that and putting it into a public engagement setting by taking his work, and we put it into Minecraft. So right now what happens is I work with him and I find out about his experiments, which is object recognition. So there's videos you can see on the left hand side there. That's a rat exploring some objects in a box. So the top video is the sample phase of this task, where there's two ice cream spoons in the shapes of ice creams, and you measure how long the rat explores these objects. And then you take them out of the box, and then you replace one of the objects with something new, and you put them back in the box. And then you measure again how much time they spend investigating the objects. And what you'll tend to find is that they will investigate the new object a little bit more than the ones that they're used to. And you can make this more complicated and more difficult. You can change the color of the box and the location of objects and the types of objects. And this, we can use this as a measure to look at how memory works and how learning works, not to go into too much detail in the kind of science of this. So I was kind of worked with Antonis because he was really interested in whether we could use Minecraft to recreate his experiments. So these are relatively simple experiments, and it would be great for people to be able to experience them. And so I thought it'd be nice if we could do it in Minecraft and kind of make you feel like you were a rat in one of these boxes and actually take part and run the experiment. So I'll just play this video. So this is hopefully you'll be able to see with the video on the left hand side that this is a kind of similar environment. I've got Antonis in the box as a cue, and we've got some objects, and there's some things to interact with on these objects. And so I'm trying to recreate the same experience of you needing to kind of work out what you're doing. So there's no instructions. A rat doesn't get an instruction when you do an experiment with them. They just have to work out what to do. Same thing happens here. Someone basically thrown into a box and they have to work out what's happening. And what we can do in this is we've actually kind of gone a bit further than this. So it's not just actually recreating the experiment and getting you to experience it. It's also, we could collect data from this. So what's going on behind the scenes is every time you get close to one of these objects, there's a little scoreboard which starts to measure how much time you're spending interacting with the objects. So we can recreate the experiments as we do with the rats, and do the exact same protocol and collect data. And that's something we're really hoping to look to explore and do further. So it's kind of, we can do public engagement in a kind of traditional sense with this, but we can also do much more kind of community science work as well, and work with communities around the world as well, which is something I'm really interested in doing, and kind of collecting data with people who are interested in this. So we've tested this one out really briefly in Samos in Greece. This is a really international project of mine. I'm quite happy of how international it is. And so Antonis went out to Samos to test this with some school pupils out there, and it was quite successful. And so we're really hoping to kind of acquire some funding and kind of continue this on in future and work on doing more of this translation work. But so this is really good, and it allows us to work with researchers and translate this information into interesting, familiar spaces for a lot of younger people and a lot of communities, something that's quite accessible and relatively cheap to set up and run as well. You need a copy of Minecraft and a computer and pretty much ready to go. But what I would really love to see, because the reason I started out with Minecraft as well, is that it's something that a lot of people have used and it's quite easy to use, and people quite like making things in it. It's very creative. So I would really love to see kind of, if I kind of carry on in this sphere of kind of flipping the whole kind of idea of actually starting with communities and going, we can build something together. Like, this would be really great. Like, what do you find interesting? You've got all these skills as younger people. I'm thinking young communities at the minute, but Minecraft's average age is about 25. So actually this could go to all sorts of places. And, you know, you have skills in video games or working in games or thinking about how people interact with spaces and find them interesting. So why don't we go about building something that you find interesting that could be also interesting to other people? And I would really love to have a situation where I could kind of help people build these kind of things. And then we go to research and go, look, we've got this really cool thing. It's based on your research or is inspired or based on this area that you are researching in. What could we do with this? How could we take it further? What could we add to it to make it kind of more perhaps more scientifically rigorous, or perhaps we can use it to collect data and inform and actually kind of do this dual community type science as well as public engagement in a kind of traditional sense. So I'd really love to kind of see that format going. And I think kind of this game type approach is something which is, it's a nice hook. It's quite easy for people to latch onto, and it's relatively straightforward also to get started in. Like, you don't have to be an expert in Minecraft or an expert in video game design or anything like that. It's kind of fun to work in this space because it's really it's not straightforward, but it's kind of, the challenge is fun, and you can see when things go wrong and what it does, and it can work in teams, and it's something that I found quite engaging. And when I've worked with university students mainly on building things at the minute on this, like, they've also had a lot of fun about being creative and having control over things. And I'm there basically usually just to make sure we keep to time. And I'm learning a lot from students when I build things with them. So I'd love to kind of see more of this kind of work in the future. But I kind of wanted to kind of pitch that as an inspirational type thing. So I'm just going to stop sharing so I can see everyone. But thank you very much for listening.